Hello and welcome to Meet Your Inspiration podcast with Mary and Rich. Here we're talking about inspiration, motivation, and empowerment. Our guests are ordinary people who became extraordinary, and with sharing their stories, we want to help you and empower you to become the person you want to be and go beyond your dreams.
This morning, we'd like to say thank you very much to Hampstead House for hosting us again. It's a great hotel to stay at down here in just outside Sittingbourne in Kent. The hospitality is incredible, great food. The rooms are amazing, and we really recommend a stay if you're down in this way. This morning, we have a very special guest, Caroline, and we welcome you to our Meet Your Inspiration podcast.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you both.
Thank you. Today, we will speak about business mentoring, business support, work with children.
Young people.
Yes, and lots of charity work as well involved. So we're really looking forward to learn more about you.
Thank you.
Just briefly, the power of networking is this that Caroline is another person that we had the pleasure to meet on a networking event. And me personally, living in Kent for the last 15 years, I was very surprised to hear that Kent Foundation exists. I'll be really looking forward for us later on in the conversation to explain us a bit more, because I'm pretty sure lots of people will be good to know much more about that.
We never know what we don't know, do we? And
Exactly.
Kent is such an amazing county. It offers so much to so many people, and it's so big. And so even in your own part of the county, you may not come across bits. And then when you come together with other people from other bits of the county, that's what networking events are great for. You find out so much more that you didn't know. And I'm always learning. I'm always on a journey. I always meet someone new. I went to a couple of networking events this week. I met new people. I learned new things. And part of the passion I have for the county I live in and the county I work in is being able to connect people, being able to pull them together and say, you need to speak to this person, or you need to speak to that person. And I think that for me is the bit I enjoy the most, is connecting people up.
It's great.
It's quite nerve-wracking, isn't it, as well? When you first go, the first time you go to a networking event and you go in, and there's all these people you don't know, and you go up and you're like, hello, I'm Richard, and I'm from Beyond Our Dreams.
It's an introvert's worst nightmare, isn't it? It's a room full of extroverts all going up to each other, shaking each other's hands, saying, "Hi, I'm here to help."
Absolutely.
I think my advice for anyone who's doing networking, because a lot of people don't do it, they don't like it, or they think they're going to get sold to. Go in with a spirit of wanting to learn things. Go in with a spirit of discovery. Consider yourself an adventurer who's going to be finding out everything you can about the room. A lot of people, when they first start networking, make the mistake of thinking that they're in the room to tell people about themselves.
Yeah.
And actually you're not. And that's the trick.
Yeah.
The trick of being in the room is to learn things about other people.
Okay.
Ask as many questions as you can. Listen twice as much as you speak. And unfortunately, if you meet another person like me, we end up asking each other so many questions about what they're doing. It gets a bit difficult. It's like, well, no, don't tell me about you. Tell me more about you. I don't want to hear about myself.
An hour later, you've met the one person.
Exactly. But for me, I love the question of, so what do you do? Who are you? Where are you from? Is this the first time you've been here? How long have you lived in Kent? I went to a networking at Betshanger Country Park this week. Beautiful park. If you've not been, it used to be a colliery tip. So a little known fact, we used to have 4 coal mines in Kent. And Betshanger was one of them. And it's the remains of what was the coal spillage, where all they used to put out the bits that they didn't mine. And they turned it into a country park. It's absolutely beautiful. And it has a wedding venue. They're planning to build this surfing thing there. It's quite astonishing. Wow. Lovely venue, lovely opportunity to bring lots of different people together and go for a walk.
Yeah.
Some people bought dogs, and that was a great way of networking. So, the usual idea that you end up being in a room with a whole group of people walking around exchanging business cards. It doesn't have to be that way. There are lots of nicer networkings. There's a lovely networking in Ashford that's run by Helen, and they do nice networking for marketeers. And the idea is anyone who works in marketing, be it for a company or on their own, can come together and do nice networking. And it has an ethos of being friendly and talking to people. So there is, I think, long story short, there's something for everyone in networking. Don't, just because if you've been to one and it's not for you, Don't rule it out.
Yeah.
We have, thriving chambers of commerce in Kent. There's Seven Oaks Chamber of Commerce. There's Invicta Chamber of Commerce. We have the Federation of Small Businesses. There are 19 BNI chapters if you really like getting up really early in the morning. There are loads of different ways of coming together and meeting people for the benefit of improving yourself, finding out more things, and your business.
How your story start? How did you? Obviously, we will need to take you back in the time.
Oh no, make me talk about myself. No,
just a little bit to give us, because obviously one of the goals of this podcast is as well to show to the young people and to everyone that how you start, what you were thinking back in the time, and obviously how did you choose your career, how you start, what makes you, because it's very interesting how lots of people got different roles.
I think that the clue is to never grow up. So when we're children, we're asked, what do you want to be when you grow up?
That's right.
And I was never able to give a coherent answer to that. I wanted to be everything. And I left school at 16, ran away to London, ended up working in politics, loved that, then had a family early, moved to Germany, ended up running a bar and a restaurant and getting into hospitality. Then through the connections and people I met, ended up working for investment banks when I came back to England. I lived in Whitstable and worked up in London in an investment bank. Then grew tired of that, then ran a restaurant, then ran my own restaurant and bar. And I think I'm someone who does things for a couple of years, 3 or 4 years, until they no longer interest me, and then I move somebody on. But there is a common thread that goes through it, which is a desire to change something that's not quite right in that thing. So ultimately, I trained as a project manager. I learned project management skills, and a lot of project work is the delivery of a time-limited piece of work. So there might be a transformation project that an organisation is working on. There might be a new product they're rolling out, or a new piece of training, or just a time-limited piece of work, not business as usual. And in order to make that work, you need someone who's organised and can bring all the threads together and make people do their various bits and report on it. And that's the bit I've always been quite good at. And that's where I've ended up doing some wonderful work. I became quite interested after I ran my own business. I went to work for the Chamber of Commerce in Folkestone. So I was the manager of the Chamber of Commerce across the Folkestone-Shepway area. And I started working with businesses to get them to the point where they could grow and to launch, and all kinds of entrepreneurs.
What were your trigger points to start each project?
I think things I was interested in. So I've always been interested in food and drink and hospitality. Within the hospitality industry, especially a fast-moving restaurant, you've got one chance to get it right, because you've got your customer. They're sat at the table. They're expecting their evening, their entertainment, their food, their drink, their meal, and you can't mess it up.
No,
whereas when you're designing a product, or you're working in a factory, or you've got other bits going on, you can always step back from something and just say, no, that didn't work. We'll do that again. We'll have another go at that. Whereas when you're delivering an in real time experience, which is hospitality, restaurants and bars, you can't mess it up.
No,
or if you do, you've got to put it right straight away. And it's the best place to learn service. And my own children and young people I've worked with, I like to hire people who've worked in hospitality, simply because I know they get it. They understand that the customer's in front of you right now. It doesn't mean the customer's always right.
No.
But the customer's in front of you right now. They've paid their money. They want their experience. Let's give it to them. And that need to focus in as a business owner, or a manager, or someone running a business, you always have 400 things on your to-do list. There's always 100 things you should be doing, 100 things you could be doing, and the 2 things you'd like to do. And what happens when you wake up in the morning, you come down and you think, I'm going to do one of those 2 things that I really want to do, and the other 100 things start screaming at you. And the ability to manage multiple projects and multiple demands on your time and the time and resources of your organization is a skill set. And I think that if you're trying to successfully launch or run your own business or any project, whatever you're doing, maybe whether that's a charitable project, anything, the ability to manage your time and competing things on your time and be able to say, okay, we're going to do 3 things today. These are the top 3 things that are going to get done.
Yeah.
And we know why. And so many people become very overwhelmed by that. That is quite overwhelming. And so I think my skill set has always been the ability to be able to say, okay, we're going to do those and that. That doesn't mean I don't get overwhelmed. And that doesn't mean I haven't had moments where I'm, shaking quietly in a corner thinking, why did I say yes to this? But I think saying yes to things is always better than saying no.
It is, yeah. And in hospitality, that's even more important because people are demanding, aren't they? So that they know, oh, could you do this? Could I have one of these? And
is it possible to that? Can I have that? And managing expectations is part of the job. There are always going to be people who are difficult. I once famously, in my own restaurant and bar, not in somebody else's, but when I was running my own restaurant, I was having to cook. This is the other thing. When you run your own business and you've set up your own business, know how to do all the jobs. That doesn't mean you have to do all the jobs, but as sure as eggs is eggs, and one day, the day you most need it, your chef will go down or your pot wash will go down or you suddenly have to unblock a dishwasher. And those being able to have the capacity to do all of those things, not that you do them every day, but just if you do. I remember being in the kitchen and having to cook, and we had a very demanding couple who from day one were going to complain. They were clearly out for a freebie night, and anyone working in hospitality will know these customers. You've had them in your bar. And one of my waiters came and said that this particular couple had been very difficult and very demanding, and nothing was right for them, and they were quite vocal with each other as well as with staff. And by the time they got to their main course, we delivered their main course, but my staff had run off their feet and they'd asked for mustard, and the guy had probably waited no more than a minute, possibly 2, and decided to get up and walk into the kitchen following one of the staff to try and get his mustard. He encountered me and I smiled sweetly and said, mustard, yes, of course, I'll be out in a second. And in that time, spoke to my team, established that this had been a difficult customer all the way along. And as something inside me snapped, I don't know if you should ever do this in hospitality, but I suddenly thought, no, I've had enough of this. This is stopping right now. And I walked to the table. I took both the plates off the table. I'd literally just been put down, handed them to a waiter and said, ladies and gentlemen, to the couple, I'm really sorry, but I don't think I'm ever going to be the right place for you. So you can have your starters and your drinks on me for free. But I'd like you to leave now. And they looked at me and said, what do you mean? And I said, I'm never going to be right for you. This whole evening, this whole experience, you're never going to be happy with it. So it's best we stop it right now. And this guy, he was never used to being told no. He threw his knives and forks and he just said, but I want my dinner. I said, I know. And so does everybody else here. And they wanted a nice environment without having someone like you sat next to them. So up you get, off you go. Bye. And he looked at me and he said, you can't do this. And I said, well, yes, I can. This is my house and this is my restaurant, and I want my other guests to have a lovely experience, and I can't let you spoil it. But I'm not going to inconvenience you by making you pay for what you've already had. You just need to go. And he got up and he left, and everybody else in the restaurant, there were about 50, 60 people in the restaurant, applauded.
Wow.
Because this chap had obviously been disturbing them. And I think, this idea in hospitality, are the customers always right? Yes. But
until a certain point.
Until they're not. The customer's always right until they're not. And you have to have a courage to be able to politely and kindly call it time and say to someone as a customer, I've done what I can do. This is me. This is my product. And if that isn't what you want or what you need, I'll refer you to someone else.
And
I think that capacity to remain calm and pleasant, but yet still get what you need.
So was that restaurant over here?
I used to, for my sins, I used to run the King's Head in Hythe, which is a pub and restaurant still there. It's in Hythe in Kent. If you've ever been to Hythe, Hythe's a beautiful town. It's one of those market towns. It's got a beautiful long high street. And this was 20 years ago when we had a lot more pubs and restaurants going on. I ran it for 3 years. I won national pub awards, and we had a great time doing it.
But you didn't have any experience I
did,
or whatever. Your experience was a bit more.
I'm very much a let's get in and do it. It can't be that difficult. And as a result, I've got myself in all sorts of pickles. Yeah. I have learned that being a plasterer isn't as easy as it looks. And so there are some jobs and roles that you do have to pay a professional for. And I've learned that the hard way. So I happily employ decorators, plasterers, builders, because that is a skill that you do have to learn. But then I've always been a keen cook. And so whilst I didn't go to catering college and didn't learn to be a chef, it's not that hard.
Okay.
It's
No, but
okay.
this is what I mean. Obviously, you were brave and you were like, oh, I want to do this. Jump in and
Oh,
I will do it. You've got the goal,
absolutely.
you
The
go and achieve
determination.
it. Yeah.
I'm very much a watcher and observer. If I find someone with a new skill set or talent, I'm very much so how do you do that? And what do you do? And how do you press that? And I'll read a lot about it. I'll learn a lot about it before doing it myself. So it didn't stop me. I was when I took the pub and restaurant, I was a keen amateur cook. But I then had also spent by that time best part of 4 or 5 years working in hospitality for other people. And in
So
that
that's
time,
good. At least you knew how the things are going because before you become the boss.
So I do recommend when you're setting up your own business, you have to have an element of technical skill and knowledge and expertise of the product or the service that you're selling. But then you need entrepreneurial skills, and that's where my current role comes in.
Yeah.
But there is a balance of the two. And where there are difficulties is when someone just has all the entrepreneurial spirit but no technical knowledge, or all of the technical knowledge but no entrepreneurial spirit. And so it is running and setting up your own business or doing your own thing is a 360 job. You know, there are bits in each part of the circle that you need to have. You can't just be too much weighted to one side or the other.
Interesting. So what took you? You said you went over to Germany. So what took you over to Germany, and how did you find adapting in a new country with a new language? And
I've always been adventurous. Some say foolhardy, some say mad, but I've always been adventurous. So I was 21, had just got married and accidentally got pregnant. Didn't intend to have a child at that time. God love him. I do love my son, but I didn't intend to have a baby at 21. And my husband at the time got offered a role out in Germany. He used to work for an international human rights charity, and he got offered a role out in Germany. And it was an opportunity for us as a family to have some family time. Whereas if we'd stayed in London, I'd have had to have carried on working. He'd have had to go to nursery. It was a different time. So I quite liked the idea that I could just be a mum. Of course, that didn't last. You know, I ended up setting up all sorts of other things, but that's another story, because I think I'm incapable of resting. I think it's one of those, sit quietly and just do one thing. I'm incapable of doing. I've often thought, there must be a name for my syndrome. I haven't quite found it yet, but
Caroline,
she's a phenomenon. Someone I used to work for said if she didn't exist, you'd have to make her up, which I've always thought was an interesting backhanded compliment. I'm not sure whether it was a compliment or not, but no. So I went out to Germany, and I remember I had a 6-week-old baby, my son, and I was on the plane, and the only words of German I knew at that time were written on the little packets in front of me, Salz and Pfeffer, and I thought, well, it's a start. I know 2 words, and from that point, I then immersed myself into the country. I got to meet lots of really lovely people out there. And again, I'm a networker. I reached out and I found things like the British Women's Club and, all of the various different societies and organisations that were there, met people, talked to people, found things out. They didn't really like the German kindergarten system, so I helped set up an English nursery out there. Got other it was called the International Kindergarten, got other people together to come to the kindergarten just so it suited me, and started up other things.
Amazing.
So I always think you lots of people get put off starting things because it seems so overwhelming. And again, that skill set of mine is to let's write a list, let's just get going.
But then there's a need. There was clearly a need, because obviously in international schools is wherever you are in the world. And if it doesn't exist in that particular town or that particular area, then why not create it?
Create it, make it happen.
Yeah.
And I think also some of us experience inertia. So you're too busy wanting to get it perfect, you don't actually start. And so if you're thinking to yourself, I want to set up my own business, but I need this and I need that and I need this and I have to have this and I have to have that. You enter into this period of inertia where it's never going to be right. You're never, ever going to get those things right. And my approach is always, okay, let's get a few things right at the beginning. Let's get them lined up. and then let's just do it and course correct along the way. And again, project management skill set, that is being able to say, okay, let's have a quick review in my head. What worked, what didn't work, what could we do better next time? And just keep moving, because all too often you'll sit there and then become overwhelmed by the task, or believe that there are barriers in front of you, and that it's the Nike logo, isn't it? Just do it. Just do it.
And then you can gradually tick them off as you go, work through them, and just see the accomplishments.
Absolutely. Oh, and also, not be afraid of failure.
Yeah.
Don't be so. There were some things I've done that I've really questioned my sanity. And what point did I lose? You know, when give myself a little head wobble and think, why did you do that? You know. But again, don't spend time on it. Don't dwell on it. Learn from it. They are not failures. The
past is the past, but then tomorrow you can start something fresh and do it. And
it gives you an opportunity to learn. You know, I used to think that I wanted to do direct work with children. It was a thing that, you know, there's a personal history there. There was work that I wanted to do, especially in the field. I went back to university in my late 40s, early 50s to do a degree in therapeutic childcare. And I felt that was a particular piece of work that I wanted to do to my own childhood. But actually, it just kept re-traumatizing. It just kept reopening what was a difficult box. And eventually I discovered and thought, yeah, it's time with that. I can lend my skills to those kinds of organizations in terms of doing project managery type stuff, but I can't really get too involved in the work. And even then, under stress, getting involved in that work isn't good. And you learn things about yourself. But the way I live isn't for everyone. There are some people who've done the same job for 30 or 40 years and they're very happy. And everyone has a place. And my place is, 4 to 5 years on a project maximum. Get as much done as you can in that time, be as transformatory as you can, move it from this point to this point. And if it no longer pleases you, move on. Because we've only got one life.
Yeah.
There isn't going to be a chance to, it's again like the being in the restaurant.
Yeah.
We can't do it over again.
No.
We've got one life, one opportunity. And so if it is causing you, not short-term pain, I'm not suggesting one day you have one bad day and then you think, well, I blow this for a game of soldiers, I'm off. But, if something isn't working and you're not happy, for goodness sake, do something else.
And also, you tend to find as well, I think, if you're not happy in the thing you're doing, then it's less likely to flourish and it won't be success because your passion's not in it. As soon as your passion comes out of something, it just doesn't work anymore, and you just got to refresh and start.
Absolutely. I mean, we've all got to make a living. You've all got to have ways of bringing in the pennies. We've all got to keep roofs over our heads.
Yeah.
But ultimately, let's try and do that in a way that gives balance, in a way that gives pleasure. And for me, I've done some rebalancing. I like now the opportunity to be able to spend time with grandkids. The children went on to have children of their own, and it's fun for me to do that. And being able to balance my time is important to be able to do that.
You said something that is very obviously at this point, and for me as well, I reflect and lots of people around me, that people are scared to start to do something just because they want, if you've got 10 points on the list, 10 tick off. I've been scared in the past. I had a few ideas to do something and always because, I'm not sure, and you put it back. Recently, I've got sometimes chats with friends because since we started the project, we met lots of people like you start to change your perspective and to realize how the things works. And actually, even Beyond Our Dreams project was after just a conversation. Let's do it. If it wasn't Rich, probably we wouldn't be here sitting today because I was very ready to do it. And I've got this moment that I go to the pick and I'm like, I'm not sure we can do this and this. And he's like, let's start. We'll see how it comes. Exactly your words. And obviously 8 months later, I can see that really it works because you start to meet the right people. Somehow everything come up. And it's good advice for everybody really to think about it. What is the passion? And just go and try it. Because as Caroline said, it's one life. It's one chance. We need to try. If we fail, we fail. We learn the...
I don't ever think it's a fail. And that's a little bit of imposter syndrome is a good thing because it keeps you sharp. If you were someone who didn't feel a little bit, oh God, am I good enough? Who am I to be this person doing this? What on earth am I doing it? If you didn't think those things, you would just be... there's a misconception that a lot of people have. I'm very confident. I've always been confident. I'm happy and a positive person. And there's a misapprehension there that I don't think about anything. I'm frightened of nothing. She'll do anything. She's fearless. I'm not fearless. Inside, I'm still sitting there thinking, oh my God, someone wants me to speak to 400 people. I'm going to lose it. I'm going to get on stage and have nothing in my head. And you have to feel those things, because I think that's what gives you the edge. Adele, the singer, she says that she almost throws up every time she goes to sing on stage with nerves. And you think, goodness me, this woman is the whole package. She's got the most amazing voice, and she feels so nervous that she almost throws up before a performance. And I think you need that element of inner reflection, worry, anxiety, whatever you want to call it. So I think a part of the challenge is that when people go through that the first few times, they think they're the only person that's doing that. And they look at people who come in and work a room and go, oh, hi, and how are you? And they think, oh my God, that's amazing. How do they do that? They're all having the same thoughts, the same fears. It comes out of
talk, and they don't share this part of it.
No.
Lots of people got it. We had few incredible leaders who shared the same thing. I didn't know that this is called imposter syndrome until it was mentioned, and then you realize that the people are experiencing the same, but the trouble is that they don't share.
No.
And why they don't share and they don't tell, this is why most of the people and young people are like, oh, I can't do it, because look at them, they're so good. I'm not good enough. I'm worried. Everybody goes through that.
Absolutely. So one of the things that helped me, or I think, I'm trying to think back, maybe 10, 15 years ago, that I first discovered was Brene Brown. Have you followed Brene Brown or any of her work?
No.
So she's an American social worker, but she's also a business leader and a business coach, and she does an awful lot of work, the Dare to Lead, and she talks about vulnerability within leadership, and about being courage and being brave, and she calls it strong backs and soft fronts, and it's the idea that you shoulder the weight and the responsibility. That's the strong back, but you have to have an element of vulnerability and a soft front to be able to be human, to be real. Because when we armor up, when you imagine that you're walking in to do something and you're armored up, not only are you protecting yourself from harm and from damage, but she says you're also armoring up from the good stuff, because you can't have the good stuff without the bad stuff. And if you're so armored up that nothing gets in, you're not going to appreciate the human connection. You're not going to get the real stuff that makes an impact and that lives with us for a long time. So Brene Brown was one of those people that really got me, because back when I first started reading her, I was definitely armored up. I would walk into a room and just
take over
and be a really strong, dominant personality. And whilst that got stuff done, didn't get it done in the best way or a human way or a nice way. And you went home and you thought to yourself, oh, I was a bit of a bossy boots today, and I'm not a very nice person. And that's the humanity, and you need to be open about that.
You do.
And you need to be able to, even when delivering bad news, even when telling someone something horrible, even when having to manage difficult processes, and we'll all have to do that as leaders, being able to retain the humanity. I once had to let someone go, and he was a lovely chap, but he just wasn't right for the role. I could see it, he didn't know it, but everyone could see it, and it ended up being a coaching session and a therapy session, almost, really, to moving him on from the organisation, but making him feel like it was his decision and that's what he needed and he wanted, rather than us just saying, you're not very good and you're still in your probation period and you need to go. And I would like to think that his life is better now, because he didn't have that disappointment of, I'm not good enough, that shame. And instead he had someone who said, you're really good at these things.
This is where you need to work.
I can't give you these things in this job. You need to find a job that gives you these things, because this is where you're going to shine. And
that's great.
It's a nicer way to say to someone, it's me, not you. Because ultimately it's the same. It's a relationship, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And how nice is it to sit someone down and say, this job isn't going to give you what you need. You need this, 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 and this in a job. because that's where your talent lies, rather than you're not good enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need this, and you're not it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think, I don't know, as an older person, I'd like to be able to go back to the younger version of me and just say to the people that maybe I upset, I'm sorry, I'm still learning. And we're always still learning.
Absolutely, every day.
Every day.
Just doesn't stop.
And I think that's the benefit of things like this, podcasts like this, because you'll learn something new. Or you'll meet someone at a networking event, and that person will give you a new insight or a new thought, and you walk away and you think, yeah, I'd never seen it that way before. I never reflected on it that way.
Everyone we've spoken to and the people we continue to sort of network with, we're always, every day, learning something new. And there's always something really interesting, because everyone's, the different experiences that we all have touch us in a different way. And they just build our characters, and it just helps us to understand in a much more clear way, and it's really positive. Really positive.
But in my personal opinion is that you start to get the thoughts that most of the people came here at one or some point in the interview, they cover the same thing.
They did.
It come up somehow.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. And I will just say about one point, and that's about, because I'm a big advocate and I'm keep telling some people which are not happy in their workplace that there exist good places to work. They exist the right place for them. And they keep trying to tell me with their negativity that no, we don't live in the world of paradise. All the bosses are bad. Everything is bad. And I'm like, no, just look our interviews so far and just, no, they're talking about that on the podcast. I said, no, I know them. I've seen the environment where they work, and I can see that. And there are many more like them. We just need to talk about these good places. We can see lots of leaders are a bit changing. We're getting a bit more to the leadership that people really, how they called the boss and the leader, obviously leaders we talk about, not just bosses to tell you do this or do that.
There are lots of so servant leadership. There are lots of thoughts around, a leader exists to serve. You're not really a leader until someone follows you. You're just a manager, and that's very true. I've met some interesting people who have been in leadership roles, and some have been leaders and others have been managers, and some have been just pure out psychopaths. I think there's an element of leadership that attracts psychopaths, a small percentage of them, and I seem to find them with a knowing ability. I don't quite know how, but anyway, I think in your world of work, you need to feel you fit in, a sense of belonging. And if that sense of belonging isn't there, that common purpose, and you're just then there because it's convenient or the salary is right or the work's easy, then you're not going to feel fulfilled. Now, that may be okay for you. I've met some people who are able to compartmentalize that 8 hours at work and just think, it's a job. I go in, I do my job, and I live for at home. And they're really great people. They've got fascinating lives. They've got lovely families, lots of sporting activities. So they make up for that deficit elsewhere in their lives because work is just 8 hours. And that's fine as a mindset if that gets you through, because ultimately you sleep for 8, you work for 8, and then 8 is something else. So what you do with that other 8, great. Whereas for me, I have to have everything in my world looking great. I get upset when bits of it aren't. And so I want my family home life to be lovely and wonderful, and my kids and my grandkids to be happy, and I want to have time with my friends. But I also want to go to work and feel I've made a difference.
Absolutely.
And that's important for me, but it's not important for everyone.
No, everybody decide there, but they decide what and how they want. But when you're not happy on some place, there is always a chance and opportunity to go and change it. And it's all depend of ourselves. Nobody will knock at your door and actually, do you need any help? Do you want another job or whatever? You have to make the
or
step.
think about, for me, I've had a couple of times in my life where there have been challenges and things that, you sit and look at something and think, right, I'm not happy. My world's not happy. What do I need to change to do it? And if you stay true to your own values, if you have a strong sense of moral values, whatever your values are, I've found the times when I've been unhappy and things have really made me, sit up, are when those values are trodden on. If I have a really strong value of openness and of truth, And so when I find people that I'm supposed to be working with and supposed to be trusting
Covering up.
are covering things up or lying or exhibiting double standards, saying one thing but doing another, those for me are real trigger points. They're the things that are going to make me super unhappy. And sadly, like a small child, I start acting up when those things happen. You know, so I've learned to listen into that. So if I start being snappy or bolshy or bad tempered, it's usually
there's an underlying trigger that's
there's
really
something going on that is on those values of openness, truth, and doing one thing and saying another, or disingenuousness. But it's taken me the best part of 20, 30 years to work that out. And so I would urge anybody who's looking at leadership or is in leadership or is thinking about those elements and the elements of entrepreneurship, if something, it's that trust your gut. If something's feeling not right, just sit with that feeling for a minute, because all too often we try and, well, I've learned, I try and minimize that feeling. So I'm like, oh no, it'll be okay. And it'll be fine. We just keep carrying on. We carry on. And you keep pushing that emotion down, and eventually that emotion will explode. And so I've learned, I think I've learned, I don't know if I have learned, I hope I've learned to sit with it a little bit longer and think, okay, so something's not right. Not overthink it, not worry, and see things that aren't there.
Just to analyze.
But just to sit and look at it and think, is that right? Does that feel right? Is that what's bothering me? And then to check it with other people. To say to other people, when so-and-so said that, did they mean this or did they mean that? And when you then find a couple of other people who go, it was like that, that validation, that's the moment to say, so what am I going to do about it? Am I going to put up with it, or am I going to go? And more often than not, I just go. I find it easier to just say, okay, we're done here. I've done my work. Thank you very much. Shake the hand, look them in the eye, and move on. Because you're not going to change them.
No, particularly when you're working for somebody else. Some people just never change.
They'll never change. And you either accept it or work around it. But for me, and there are other things that some people say, oh, how do you put up with that? And that doesn't bother me. And so I think each of us has our own thing that we can't tolerate. So for some people, it might be disorganization, it might be dishonest, whatever your value is, your big core value. And when that core value gets trodden on, that's the time you start to feel unhappy in the workplace, feeling like bosses are all rubbish, because that core value has been trodden on.
I think one of those things is particularly being similar people, sort of when you have a passion for a project and the other people in the project don't have that passion and they're not following the same values, they're not going along with you, that's when you start to realize that they're not working in the project, or you're not working in their project, because you're just not in alignment. And you have to be aligned in whatever project you're doing. And if you just cover those same bases, it just makes all the difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, and also to have a common purpose and be able to be confident to state that common purpose, because everybody, if you bring a group of 8 or 10 people together to work on something, each of those people is going to come into the room with some different values and different ideas about what they're trying to achieve. And I think it's very good to be open and honest at the beginning of that and just say, these are the things we're doing. This is what we're hoping to achieve. Is everyone on board? Or as I like to say, are you on the right train? Because if you're not, it's time to change. Get off this train and find a different train. Go in somewhere else.
Find a new destination.
Or go fly. But you're not on my train, go to my station, which makes everyone laugh. But ultimately, it's a check-in to say, here's what we want to do. Because then when you find that project starting to drift, or things not going well, or the ultimate slump, because everything, when you start something, it always has a bit of enthusiasm, but then 6 months later there's a bit of a slump. And when you hit that slump, that's the time to then say, is everyone still on the same train with the same ticket going to the same destination, or we've got people trying to pull it in a different direction? Or you ask that question of yourself, is this actually what I want to do? I've thrown myself at it for 6 months. It looks great, but it hasn't worked. Can I change this? Can I change that? Not really.
Let's speak a little bit about Kent Foundation, because I really want to learn a lot about it. I'll leave to you to tell us a bit more what you're doing.
Okay, so the Kemp Foundation's been going for nearly 40 years. As of February next year, it's celebrating its 40th birthday. Okay. And it exists to help support young people into getting their own businesses or running their own businesses or thriving in their own businesses. When it was first established, it also had an element of education and training attached to it. And in the time set, if you think back to the 1980s, there was an awful lot of youth unemployment. 1 in 10 young people didn't have a job, didn't have an opportunity. And so the Kemp Foundation was founded by a number of well-to-do people within the county who decided they wanted to do something to help young people. About the same sort of time, the king, who was, as he was then, the prince, set up the Prince's Trust. And within Kent, the Prince's Trust and the Kent Foundation worked side by side for many years, working together. Prince's Trust went off in a different direction, and I don't believe have a presence in the county anymore, or it's delivered elsewhere. But Kent Foundation has been endured and has remained. We're mainly, I'm employed, but we have mainly volunteers. So we have 90 volunteer business mentors who are business people established from around the county who feel they want to give back. And they will have attended one of our training courses. So we run a 1-day course where we teach people what is mentoring, what's the difference between coaching, therapy, mentoring, information, advice and guidance, where's your role, what's your role as a mentor, and they use their own experiences plus the support from us. And then we appeal to anyone under the age of 40 who is running or wanting to run their own business within the county. And we can provide support in all areas. So one of our business mentees that we're supporting wanted some help with establishing herself and getting going, but she now needs some specific financial advice. So we put her in touch with one of our mentors who's an accountant, who's very happy to talk to her about that. It's not a replacement for, if she wanted her accounts done every month, then that would be a billable fee. But it's much more of that advice. Connecting them, advice, support. We wouldn't exist if it weren't for our volunteers, and they're amazing. They're wonderful people who want to give something back, and they're entrepreneurs, and they love seeing business grow. And that's actually one of the challenges is we sometimes have with mentors, is to just say to them, this isn't your business. And
don't buy into it.
And if
you're, some of them would really think, well, this is a great business, I'll buy into this.
Or no, more along the lines of, no, we don't want to be doing that. We should be doing this. And that's the point, that they have to remember that the young person they're mentoring, it's their business, and you can advise them, and you can say, absolutely, you can advise them and say, if it were me, I wouldn't, but it's entirely up to you. It's their passion and their dream that we're supporting. And beautifully, the relationship, which appears to be more the mentor doing for the mentee, usually reaches this beautiful point of balance where mentor and mentee are actually learning from each other. And I get the fun job of matching those people up. And hopefully some of my matches will be a little adventurous. So sometimes I'll match someone who you might at first glance not think will get on, but I've interviewed the mentor, I've interviewed the mentee, and I think they'll be a good match. So I'm always reminded of the 7 Brides for 7 Brothers. You remember the matchmaker, make me a match song, and that's always in my head, which, matching the two together.
If someone got a business idea or need to have the business plan, or how they can apply, if it's let's say 21 years old.
Absolutely. So if you're a 21-year-old person, you've got a great idea, but you need help writing a business plan, then we can match you with a mentor that will do that for you.
So what, they apply somehow?
So they can
or is there any way that you can choose them, or
no?
Everyone can.
So the process for a young person is come on our website or ring us up and just click the button, fill the links in that you'd like some help. I'll usually then arrange a call with them and have just a sort of 15-20 minute discovery call to find out where they're at in their business and how we can best help them, because a mentor may not actually be the best thing for them at that point. It may well be that we have a course online called From Idea to Income.
Okay.
Which is a free course. We got some funding through Kent County Council, their Helping Hands scheme, to develop this free online course that allows them to work through in sort of a 2-hour little bite-sized modules, all the elements of pricing, product, website design, choice of what kind of business to be. So all of the basics, the elementals, are all in that course.
And it's not for free?
That's all for free.
Wow,
so they can just log on, fill the course in, watch all the videos and learn that for free. And that gives them the basics. So we would hope that they've either got that experience and knowledge from someone else, or they've done our course before we match them with a mentor. Because a mentor could help you with a business plan, but they don't want to be going through real basics. And also you need to have an element of having done that for yourself. they have that passion, have that desire to work it out. And then once we've got them, we might have a draft of a business plan, but it could do with some improvement or some refining. That's when the mentor might get involved. But also, the pleasure and the joy of moving someone through their business and their passion. One of our mentors has just supported a young lady for the last 2 years, and the process of her moving from being a hairdresser employed within a salon to being a mobile at home hairdresser to now having her own shop and employing her own people and being that registered and doing all of that. And he's supported her over a period of 2 or 3 years. And it's been beautiful to watch that business, start from an employee thinking, I want to be working for myself somehow, but I don't know how I'm going to do it, to that place where they could.
Obviously match, when you match them, do they need to have 1 year, 2 year period? How long it takes that they work together? Or it's all depends
up to them. Some of our mentor-mentee relationships are quite short. They're just for a targeted piece of work, a couple of months of, can someone sense check this for me? Am I going in the right direction? Some projects don't launch. Some businesses get to a certain point and then it becomes untenable, but they've had some mentorship support to make sure that that's worked. One of our businesses, so as part of the 40th anniversary, I've been reaching out to businesses that the Kemp Foundation may have helped to set up and grow. One of them I found is, she's been going for 35 years, and that's the Baby Lady. And if anyone knows the Baby Lady, you do. But she's in Canterbury, Whitstable area, and everyone goes there and gets their prams and all of their stuff. She's been going for all this time. Her name's Debbie. She's lovely, and we helped her set up in business, and she's still going.
How amazing!
Turning over millions of pounds, employing lots of staff.
Wow,
she's done that. And so I always think, if you want an analogy, the analogy is that there's this beautiful embers of a fire that's just starting, and the Kemp Foundation, the mentors come along and gently blow on the embers. So we're not the fire, but we are the little blowings on the embers that just keep it growing, and eventually you hope.
How you choose the mentors then?
So the mentors come to us. So I go out and I do a lot of networking. I meet a lot of people, and I like to meet people who've been there, done that, got a t-shirt. I want people who have set up their own businesses, who or have run very successful organisations, who know what it takes and know some of the challenges and some of the trials and tribulations. They may have run 3 or 4 businesses, so they may have learned, through little avenues that didn't work out. And then we will give them their 1-day mentor training so they understand how to be an effective mentor, and then it's up to them. So some of our mentors might have 3 or 4 people that they work with. Some might only have 1. Some are taking a break for the summer holidays because they've got time with their kids and they don't want to do any other than the summer holidays. It's very much, it's a volunteer role. So I'm very much led by them. They're not employees. It's a volunteer role, and we're very grateful for what we get.
And how many do you have? How many mentors?
At the moment, there's 92 mentors
92.
enrolled and working
and
with us.
And how many young people?
143.
Okay.
Just about to be
How
150.
you find it? Are they more and more coming, having ideas?
So there was obviously it was a difficult time in COVID. COVID was a very difficult time, but the Kemp Foundation provided amazing support.
But during COVID, lots of ideas came, and lots of people started businesses. Absolutely,
and so
COVID,
I think that's kind of dampened down last year. That kind of dampened down a little bit, and now we've got people who are. There's been a change in what people want out of life as a result of what happened with COVID, and also other changes and demographic changes, cost of living crisis, and all of those things have contributed to people thinking, is this it? Is this what I want? Do I want to be working in a job where someone's told me I can't have a pay increase, and now I've got got to tighten my belt? And
it can be quite a big step as well, isn't it? I mean, particularly as things become more expensive, everyone sort of like gets to a point and they're sort of reliant on a salary. Yeah. And there's one of the things that I found years ago when I changed from being an employee to starting my own business is you need something to get you through.
Yeah.
Because it takes time you don't go from sort of that last salary where you earn X amount that last month, and the next month you're going to earn the same again because it's not there. And then it might take 3 months or 4 months or 6 months or 2 years before you get to even that point where you're earning the same amount.
Absolutely.
Or hopefully a little bit more. But it doesn't always
sometimes
work.
Sometimes the people come to this situation through redundancy. So they might
Yeah.
have a redundancy from situation. There's a pocket of cash there. We're seeing a lot more now of side hustles and extra gigs. And so you may, or a balance, what I'd like to call a sort of blended role.
Yep.
So you might have 3 or 4 days a week where you're employed by someone, and then 2 or 3 days a week where you're working for yourself on your own business. And so you might look at that and think, God, you're working every single day. Well, that might be what it takes. That might be that balance of, or you're working during the day for someone else, and then in the evenings you're running your own online business, doing your own your own thing. We all know it. We've all been there.
And to be honest, I mean, those times, I mean, people will say to us, well, how do you do all the stuff that you do? But the thing is, the difference is each different part of it gives you a sense of motivation and achievement. And those senses of motivation and achievement actually drive you forward. And then it doesn't seem like you're doing, I mean, like for us, like doing the podcast, people say, well, how do you make time for doing that? And to be honest, it's always so enjoyable because you're meeting people, you're relating to people, you're learning at the same time, and we're all learning off each other, and it becomes really exciting. So it doesn't feel like work. It doesn't feel like a task.
I'm really lucky with everything I do. So I volunteer for some charities. I do the Kent ambassador role. I do the Kent Foundation as my job. None of them feel like work at all. So I'm in that wonderful, lucky position. But of course, within any job, there are going to be days or hours that are work, where it is just sit down, get this report done, get this piece of work done. It's not what you want to be doing, but it's what you need to be doing. And I always look at those as kind of enabling things. And, when things are tough, you sit and you say, okay, doing this right now for the next 8 hours enables me to do this and do that. Or it's only a short period of time and we'll get through it, whatever this difficult thing is. So I think an element, if I'm looking at elements of success for running your own business or being a leader, a bit of stickability, being able to stick at something just long enough. Just long enough that it doesn't make you boring or resentful or fed up. That you can just say, okay, today I need to be unblocking toilets. I might be the owner of a fabulous hotel or a restaurant, but today I need to be unblocking toilets because that's what needs to happen. It's not my job. It's not what I do every day, but today that's what I'm doing. And
being able to adapt to those individual situations, as we said earlier, and I think it's like, I mean, I love delivering. I love doing, the project management side of it. I love all the hands-on stuff. And as a typical entrepreneur, the one thing I hate doing is all the financy bits in the background. I don't like all the accountancy bit. I don't like all the VAT bit. And all those sort of bits.
So when you do your tax return, this
it's
is the ultimate question.
It's the last day.
I was going to say, are you one of those accountants' nightmares who sometime around the middle of January phones your accountant and says, hi, I haven't spoken to you for a year. I've got a big shoebox to pass across to you. Can you get it done by the 31st of January? So top tip, the financial year ended in that March. And you've got until January to do it. So from April till January is the window.
Hello, July.
Exactly. So my plea, if I'm going to say to anyone listening, is it's July. And you could call your accountant in September. They might be grateful for that call.
Wow,
he or she might say, wow, that's wonderful. You've given me 4 months, not 4 days to get your stuff in order. Thank you very much. And you may find yourself with a cheaper bill as a result. So if the bigger plea is get it done before Christmas, not after Christmas, because you don't want to be that person who's finding your accountant.
Thank you.
And I'm not an accountant. I don't like doing those things either. But I've spoken to enough accountants to know that January crunch time is not the time to be trying to get the job done.
I'm curious what kind of businesses are starting recently. Just few.
Who have I been talking to? I love the passion. So one lady I spoke to this week is setting up her own calligraphy business. So she's got a talent, a skill. She's very good at calligraphy, and she got asked to do someone's wedding a couple of years ago, and from that has built a really successful operation for her, doing, you know, wedding place settings and corporate events and things like that. Really exciting. So she's just been on a course that's run by colleagues in Maidstone, you know, to set up her own business, and she's now in the position to want a mentor to understand how she can make that pay alongside her job. Another lady I spoke to had been employed as a recruitment agent for 8 years, was very good at recruitment, but wants to do it herself. She wants to be her own boss. And so she's now
the same recruitment.
Yeah. So she's set up her own recruitment agency and is working really hard to make that happen and fly and speak to clients and to understand whether she's going to be a niche recruitment agency or a broad ranging recruitment agency. Another person that I spoke to this week is a designer of children's books. So he draws and illustrates and writes children's books, and so he wants to have them sold. Another person I spoke to has her own shop and makes designs beautiful napkins and tablecloths and tea towels and cards and litho prints and all sorts of fabric-y type things. And she is expanding her businesses in Kent and outside of Kent, so that all sorts of things, creatives, IT type people. We have our own networking events within the Kemp Foundation. So we offer free networking. So the idea is we get our young people together with our mentors and then people in that community business area to all come together and just meet and chat. And we offer that as a 2-hour opportunity, just come together. So it's not a membership in the sense of, you know, you have to be a member to come. We just invite everyone around the area. So the next one is at the end of the month. It's in Folkestone, and that will pull together all sorts of businesses there. You know, there are creative businesses, arty businesses, but also the traditional.
Can you see, is there a difference between boys and girls, especially the young age, or they're kind of equal?
No, so there is a drive to have more female entrepreneurs, and there definitely is. The higher you get up and the more established entrepreneurs become, there are less women. But I think that's because there are more challenges for women in terms of what we do with our lives and the choices we make, and also the cost of parenting. It is the mental load is higher for women, even when they have within relationships decided that the other partner will stay at home and look after children. The mental load is still there, and all of those things contribute potentially to there being less female entrepreneurs. But I'm finding with Gen Z, the younger generation, the females and males is average. It's it's balanced. They're people. They want
that's great.
They want their roles, so that's happening less. But we know there are demographic changes. The Kemp Foundation used to support under 30, so we've moved that to 40 now in recognition of those demographic changes.
I've got a little bit more to do with my ideas.
You can come and play. Yeah.
No, I think it's going to be great, because one of the goals of our podcast is we want to reach the young people. We want to, hopefully, if we can, with our great guests, to help them, obviously, to learn different, either about leadership, either about work, either about life in general, and how the things can happen. Because lots of things we don't learn at school, and there are lots of skills and mindset that, I don't know, probably the time is changed as well. Lots of things are happening much different nowadays.
The world's a smaller place these days. You know, we've got the internet, we've got social media, and it makes the world suddenly here and it's in my hand. And that can have benefits, but also disbenefits. And we know all of those challenges from being overwhelmed and having too much information to believing everything that's bad in the world because that's all your newsfeed shows you. And because of the algorithms, the more you click on that stuff, the more you get delivered up, and it. I've sort of tailored my news feeds now. I don't tend to do a lot of social media. I'll use it to push out our messages and to engage in what we're doing, but I don't use it to get stuff for myself. I've gone back to reading newspapers. I've got them on an app and I read one newspaper, and I have a quieter, reflective space because the world is too big and there is too much going on. And if you look for it, that's all you'll see. And my advice to young people setting up and first times in business and first opportunity, first leadership roles, all of those kinds of things, is none of us really knows what we're doing. We're all winging it. So don't feel that just because you're feeling that way, you're the only person, or that's somehow something of your age. I think, as we were saying earlier on, every day's a school day. We're always learning something. And it's the same when you're running a business. It's the same when you're starting out in your career. You just keep learning. I think the danger comes when you stop learning, when you stop being open
think that
to,
you are,
or you stop being open to new ideas. Or you're one of those people who says, "No, I'm doing it this way because we've always done it that way, and that's what we do." Or I don't want to grow the business anymore. I don't want to do anything with it because it's done. Yeah,
but it often isn't. That's the thing. No, I mean,
and you can't see what's wrong, or you don't want to try new things, or you have a very compartmentalized, driven view of how you're going to get that objective met, or is that even the right objective?
And a lot of people as well. I think like today. I mean, everyone talks. They're looking at the world situation now, and everyone's going, "Well, this is the end. This is this we're all." And I would imagine in every generation over the last centuries, there's been different things that happen. Obviously, like years ago, there wasn't the global sort of knowledge, but in the local areas, there'll be things like, "Oh, well, our homes are being destroyed, or this is happening," and this is it. This is it. But if as soon as you have that thought process and you let the world in and it suppresses you, then it stops you. And I think one of the things is when we focus, obviously our whole thought process and ethos is just to reach out to people and show everyone that we don't need to live on the media. We need to live on what's around us and find our own success. And we can find that success and positivity will spread out. If we spread positivity amongst the people we know and we know amongst our network, and they start spreading that positivity, you change the whole cultural philosophy to something really positive and use the creativity to be able to flourish.
Absolutely. And I remember when I was a teenager and I was growing up, we had all the problems in Northern Ireland. And there were bombs in London and people were dying on bombs in London. And the horrors and the atrocities of Ukraine and Gaza are, defining moments in history. They're appalling. But there are those awful, dreadful moments in every decade, and that doesn't make those ones right. And I hope that we get to a place. I don't ever think we're ever going to get to a world where there is no war or conflict, because there are always going to be people in moments of conflict who reach for a gun. And there were always going to be people who use their fists rather than their words. And it was ever thus.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that, if you think back to the, in kindergarten, we try and teach people to use their words, not their hands, and we fail. And we end up with situations, that in Russia and historical situations of land grabs and imposed solutions, the situation in Gaza. I feel a terrible sense of sadness whenever I engage in any of those stories of thousands upon thousands of people's lives lost in the pursuit of someone's goal and power. It makes you so sad.
It does. But
we are all responsible for our worlds. That doesn't mean we should inoculate or block ourselves off.
No.
I always try and there's always within Kent, there's always a lot of discussion about people arriving on boats from other parts of the world.
Of course.
And one of the things I try and get people to understand is, as a country, we take far less than anywhere else in the world. Our number of settled migrants is so low. When you look at some other countries, they take far more people into their community. But because we're a small island, people feel threatened by that because we're only a finite space and we've only got finite resources. And when things are tough for us, it feels like we don't want other people to. Those are all human responses, but so are love and so are compassion and kindness. And we need, with all of the troubles going on in the world, to reach for the compassion and the kindness and the putting yourself in those shoes. If you were living in a country where your life expectancy was 30 or 40, where there were warlords around every corner threatening to kill you and your family and wouldn't you move? If you then found out that there were better, safer places where you could perhaps educate yourself and have a life, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
And they're
Wouldn't
going
you do
through
the same?
very difficult moments. I mean, it's quite bravery to decide to go. Doesn't matter if you come to UK or somewhere else. A year or two ago, I watched the movie, I think it was called The Swimmers, about the lady, do not say this, I think they were coming back from Syria, the two sisters.
Yes.
Honestly, it touched you so much, and it showed you that obviously they had absolutely amazing life.
Yeah.
And they enjoy it. But how their parents felt when this young girl said, "We're going, we need to," and this is the worst. I know people who live in Syria, and if I must be honest, that was one of the best weddings I ever seen. So beautiful. Nowadays, these people lost everything. They needed to go somewhere else. So, yeah, it's good sometimes to put in someone's shoes because it's not easy.
And there is that balance in our world, because if you allow yourself to think only of those things, you'll be so disappointed with where the world is at and humanity. And it's so easy with social media and news in your phone, in your palm, to feel so overwhelmed by that, and to feel so that you futile. There's nothing you can do to stop it. But ultimately, I go back to what we said at the beginning: one life, one opportunity. You can't
and you can always
do
make a difference
everything.
For someone
You
else
can make a difference
around you in your community.
You can make a difference in your community. You can support someone more vulnerable in your community. You can do your recycling. You can take your steps for the planet that feel right for you, and don't try and tell other people what's right for them.
Exactly.
Just make your choices and do your best as a human being, as a citizen. Reach out to your neighbours. Look at your street. See what needs doing in your street, in your neighbourhood. Who can you help? Who needs help? And if you're someone who needs help, who can you find who can help you? What resources are out there? How can you get that package of support around you? And so, yes, in the job I do, I've got opportunities to link people who are trying to set up their own business and avoid making some of the mistakes, or at least know they're going to make them, with business people who've been there and done that and got the T-shirt. And the hope is that we encourage the embers to flame.
Yeah, it's really good.
I wanted just to ask you, obviously, woman in leadership for so many years. What challenges have you found? How you overcome the challenges? Because I know this is always a topic that we always learn quite interesting.
Misogyny is a challenge, with all present company accepted. There are some men who feel challenged by women, or who want to put women in a particular place, no matter what kind of woman you are. There are some women, I'm a bullshit, get in there, do it kind of person, and there are some men who are challenged by that. For them, that upsets who they are and the way they think and what's going on. So if I had a magic wand, I think I'd love to move out from that position where men feel they have to do certain things because that's what men do, and women fall into the trap of feeling they have to behave in a certain way. I remember once in a role not so long ago, there were 4 or 5 senior leaders copied into an email from the chief, and he allocated tasks to everyone, and then as an extra task for me said, "Oh, don't forget they need tea and coffee."
No way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I have to admit that when angered like that, my default position is sarcasm. I tend to go to sarcasm, and so my response to that was almost so, "I'll get the Hoover out and give it a quick clean round as well, shall I, whilst we're there?"
But honestly, on this one, if you don't mind, can you tell me, because I'm a very emotional person, and I'm learning to cope with my emotions and to train into sometimes we have to take a deep breath, count them to 10 to 4 or whatever.
Sometimes to 1,000.
Exactly you react on that, because I think I'm going to just turn the computer down.
Absolutely. Probably. So my I did have a sarcastic rant, and I went and had a sarcastic rant at the other people who were copied into the email to say, "So you get this job, and this job. I get all of those jobs and tea and coffee."
Oh,
have you ever think about that? What did I actually do? on that particular event when we were running it together was I didn't make the tea and the coffee. I allocated it to these 4 other men who had been copied in on the email and said, could you do the tea and coffee, because I'm not. Out of principle. I may have done it before, but out of principle.
My coffee's awful, my tea's terrible. You really
I'm going to be
wouldn't like
spitting
it.
in every one of them. So you better go and do them. Ultimately, what did I do? I sat down with that leader and said, this is not okay. After the event, not before. But when we had our next one-to-one,
obviously it wasn't a
I had
spontaneous
to-
reaction.
I
wait
had
a
to
little
take the
bit.
I had to take the courage to say, this is not okay. Don't ever do it to me again. Don't want to talk about it. I don't want to unpick your underlying misogyny, or why you thought that was okay. I don't even want an apology, because actually it's not going to mean anything. What I actually want is a commitment to never doing that again, not to me and not to any other female. Next time you're going to give someone instructions for tea and coffee, make it a general instruction. There's nothing wrong in saying we need tea and coffee,
No, of course,
but just
but
don't
not
assign
like
it
the
to the
way
only
how-
woman in
Yes.
the email conversation.
And I think for us, it's important for that balance between the tasks that we do, the things that we do together, what things we're working on, how you share those thought processes, and it actually makes a big difference, because you use each other's talents and you work together through those talents, and it's not about a male and female job. It's about using your abilities at the right point.
And it's not even about the not having that happen. Of course, we were having this meeting. Of course, they needed tea and coffee. Of course, that had to be done. But it didn't need to be allocated in that way. And so these sound like really tiny things, but they're not.
No,
they're
it's
the big
quite
things.
big,
They're the
I would
moments.
say, because on the next email or the next event,
Well,
person
it just
may-
creates creates an element of, so that's what you think of me. And ultimately, you were saying about, I'm curious about what you said about I'm learning to manage my emotions. I'm wondering, is that because someone's told you need to?
Okay, probably sometimes something happened, and okay, I'll be let's be honest, when we started this project, we were reaching to different people. Most of the people in the beginning, they were people that we know. Some of them we knew. Episode number 2, Keely, I met her for 10 minutes. That was everything. But what we find that the response of most of the people were very positive, fantastic, nice. We were absolutely ready for people to tell us it's not time for us, not everybody to accept our invitations. We had nice people who said, sorry, I'm doing just 2 podcasts this year. Can we speak end of the year? Fair enough, of course. Thank you very much. Another guy was like, I'm really busy the first 6 months. Can we speak after June? Of course we can. We were absolutely open. Obviously, Richard got lots of experience as a person having his own business and a salesman. He knows he's got much more experience in reaching people, let's say. But there was one particular lady she's very high in what she's doing. She was advised from common friend that she might be a very good fit for the podcast. So we reached the same way. Hello, we are Mary and Richard, this and this, set up company, absolutely new. And the response drive me nuts. If I must be honest, because the response was like, what is your audience? How many podcasts you do? How many people you've seen? What do you do? It was like, we said we are set up. We're just starting. And what drive me, and literally my emotions kick off, was because when you are starting and you reach people who say they are leaders, they're helping new ones, they are there to give a hand and whatever, you reach to them, and instead of, I wouldn't say anything if she say, I'm busy at the moment, we can speak at later point, that's fine. But the reaction to set up a new company, to be like, what is your audience, how many podcasts you do, you can ask this in a better way, in a more polite way.
Yes, of course.
It really drives me insane. I said to Richard, forget about this one. I don't want even to talk it. And because I do believe in this project, and I'm sure that it will take time until we get to some point. But I said it will come time. And if it comes and she wants to come, then I will answer. And these are the things that if you saw me probably on that moment, you will see that I'm going to... And this is where he saw, because we know each other, but just through some conversations, not that much. And this when he told me, calm down. He gave me some advices that obviously emotions are great, but sometimes you need to take a deep breath. You need to think about it. Don't respond straight away.
You need to
and things like that I learn every time when we work together, which is great. But
I think emotions, it's the reason I ask is because women are often told they're emotional, and it's a control thing, and it's because I've experienced this. Your passion and your excitement gets misinterpreted as you just being emotional. And there are elements where you do have to have boundaries. There needs to be a boundary around this is me and what I'm doing, and people can't affect that. And understanding the things you can influence, you can't influence what people think of you. And ultimately you got triggered by her email of saying, what's all this, and you can't change that.
I know you can't,
but what I'm trying to say is the calm down love is a derogatory term often applied at women, when actually they're just being forthright. And that's why I wanted to unpick that, because ultimately I've observed, and this may be, the opposite of misogyny, this may be me being the other way around, maybe I'm being sexist, but I have observed that men, when they have a spat, tend to have harsh words with one another, and then it's forgotten, and they shake hands and they move on. Whereas women, we internalize it through gritted teeth. We go, oh no, that's fine, that's absolutely fine. I'm going to hold a grudge against you for the next 30 years, and you're never going to know where it's going to come from, but in 10 years time I'm getting you back for this. And I think that we can joke about those things, but ultimately within business, I don't think there's a place for emotion. I think there should be far more openness. So yes, this lady that emailed you was probably quite rude in her attempt to be open.
Or probably I understand it that way. I don't know. This is it. Sometimes you never know.
Maybe you read something in that wasn't there.
Yeah.
Maybe that feeling of it comes down to shame. And this is another bit where Dr. Brene Brown is really good at shame. She's a shame researcher. Shame is, I'm not good enough. Not I did a bad thing or I've done something wrong. It comes as an internalization of I'm not good enough. And when she was asking you questions about your audience share and your size and what you were doing, that ultimately come down to a little tiny person part of you that said, I'm a big old fraud because this is all new and I don't know what I'm doing. And she's exposed that lie to the world. And that's that feeling of,
our audience was zero at that point.
Absolutely. At that point in moment, you just started out, you hadn't built an audience, and those elements that was the opening of the wound of, the bit I've stuck a plaster on is, but people might not want to listen to us. There's no audience at the moment. It's okay. Carry on anyway. And then having to put in an email, audience zero. Reach none. And all of those, because you're not there yet, because you're just starting out.
When you start somewhere.
And it's a mismatch because she hasn't heard you. She didn't hear you when you said, we're a startup. We've got this new project. We're just starting to grow. And she thought she was coming to, some established BBC's podcast. She's not. It isn't.
But this is the other thing that I like. And I will always say that we bring here people that we found genuine and authentic. And whoever sit here and speak with us, we do believe, and we first already spoke with these people and we found that we are on the same path, because it's very easy once someone succeed in life or became, I don't know, let's say Bellingham is now in my head because from the Euros. He become Bellingham. It's much easier, and of course everybody will start to support, help, want to work with him, advertise.
Until you become Gareth Southgate, and then everybody just dumps you when you have a failure.
Oh yeah,
so there is a bell curve to this up and the down.
But when it's starting, for me, the important is when someone is starting and you see there is, obviously, it covers your values. You see that there is something there. This is the moment where you have to go and lend a hand and help. Either it's advice, either it's a little bit time to how the things to do. Not always when we see someone on top of the ladder and everybody to start, Harry, this, we like them. No, the moment, and this is what I didn't, I think this is what affected me much more. And comparing, especially when we spoke with the American lady who is so busy doing absolutely from out of work as well advice from us, I didn't believe honestly that she will even respond to us. She responded us quickly.
Straight away. Yep.
We had Teams call, doesn't matter the time. Obviously we had few conversations. We record the podcast. Incredible woman, and I can say yes, this is someone who talk about leadership, and it is a leader. This is someone you want to follow as an example, who is an inspiration. I don't want someone who will say how fantastic they are, but in the meantime, you don't do it, because not everything is the social media and the social.
But it's
You've
that
got-
disingenuous mismatch between who someone presents and purports to be
Yeah.
and who they actually are.
Yeah, yeah.
And when someone, it's an old adage, but when someone shows you who they are, believe them. Yeah, if you sense something. So when I think back over, and I sometimes do a little bit of an analysis on the things that went wrong in my life and why did they go wrong, in an attempt to learn, or the projects that didn't go well, relationships with people that didn't go well. What were the flags? What should I have seen that I didn't see? And one of the things I've learned is to trust my gut a lot more, because I can sometimes be too forgiving and too kind and think, oh no, I'm imagining that slight, that this, that. It's probably nothing. I should probably just carry on. And I minimize that feeling and I minimize that thought and I don't deal with it. And so one of the things I'm trying harder to do now and to learn with is the minute something's off, the minute something makes you think, not the instant react in the moment, not screaming at someone because that'll make you look pretty psychotic.
Yeah.
But that moment that you see something or you feel something, or there is that repeat feeling of, that didn't go how I wanted it to go. That didn't sit well, or that person gave me a particular look. I wonder what that was. Talk to them about it. If the person's important, if the relationship's important, sit them down and have that conversation of, look, I really like you. I really want to be able to do business with you, but there was something here and I'm not sure what happened. Be open about it. Don't be accusatory.
No,
But
absolutely.
equally say, I felt when this happened, not you said this, but I felt a little bit this.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what that is. And I think having that conversation at the beginning will show you whether someone is honest or real. Because if they minimize that feeling and go, no, don't know what you're talking about, rubbish,
then you know
who they are.
Yeah.
And you can trust them. And that doesn't mean you should stop working with them or anything, but it just means you've kind of got their number. And now you know how they're going to behave, and you're not going to expect them to behave in a different way.
Absolutely.
And it usually comes through. That person that you think it might be a bit more reserved about projects or might tell you something's okay when really it's not. You know that's how they're going to be responding, and therefore you have less surprises. And I think ultimately that's what surprised you. Here was this person who put themselves out there, who said that they help people and they give advice and support, and they weren't prepared to do that for you. And that's that mix between what someone says they do and what they actually do. Now, I think some of my failings are probably overcommitting to things. I want to do everything. I love everything. I look at it and think, I'll do that one and I'll do that one. And then sometimes you look and just think, and I cannot be in 5 places at once. But then I tend to have the honest conversation with that person of, sorry, I said yes to this invite, but actually I can't come. Something's come up. It doesn't mean I don't love you. It just means I've got to go and do this other thing.
And it says, and you're open and honest, it's so good.
Yeah, and also I think the other thing is, if you make a mistake, this is maybe a tip for leadership, but if you make a mistake, own that mistake. Be honest about it. Because sure as eggs is eggs, the rest of your team know you've made that mistake.
Absolutely.
And they're going to judge you on it. So if you have screwed up and you were meant to be at a meeting but you went to your son's sports day instead and you completely forgot, don't try and cover it up. Be honest. Walk in and go, look, this isn't okay, but I double booked myself and I didn't realise I double booked myself. Or a project's meant to go one way, everyone's worked really hard on it, and then you've got to go in as the manager and deliver the bad news that a project's being cut. Be honest, but at the same time also be compassionate. So if you're going to think about, again, it's that thinking about yourself in those same feet. If I was having this news given to me, how would I want to hear it? What would I want to know? And accept the fact you're never going to get it right for everyone. There are going to be some people in that room who are not going to hear the message the way you want them to hear it.
Yeah.
And you can leave the door open. You can say, and if you don't like this, come and talk to me separately. Come have a one-on-one. There were going to be people who walk out that room, and this is where you have to create a bit of resilience and a bit of a thicker shell as a leader. But that sometimes gets misinterpreted as, stick your big coat of armor on and don't let anything in. There are going to be people who don't like you.
Yeah.
They're not going to like you because of the colour of your skin, your gender, your hair, your size, your attitude.
Yeah.
There'll be some reason why people don't like
Their own
you.
insecurity sometimes.
Their own insecurity. But you can't win that one.
No.
But what you can do is be able to say, I acted with integrity. I made a mistake, whatever that mistake was. I've learned from it and I'm not going to do it again. And that should be enough. That should be enough for you. And it should be enough for the people around you to say, yeah, okay, I honestly value that. Thank you for doing that. Yeah.
No, that's good.
Can I ask, what is success for you? Have you got a
What's
definition
success?
for success? Everybody got a different one. Looking back,
I'm reminded of the song, Sometimes You Don't Get What You Want, But You Get What You Need. And I think success is ultimately getting what you need. I don't think it's what you want, because you don't always know that what you want is what you get. So success is what you need. So if you need to be able to provide for your family and put a roof over your head, and you are providing for your family and there is a roof over their head and they've all managed to go off to school and houses and create their own wealth and do their own things, then that is success. A good night's sleep is success.
oh yes,
Being able to have a solid, I have one of these Fitbit watches, I don't know if other people do, and it gives me a little sleep report each night. And I know from my own experience that when I'm stressed, my sleep is the first thing to go. And so when I get a 90 report, out of 100, that usually means I've gone to bed on time, I'm properly hydrated, I did enough exercise in the day, and all of my responses are pretty much there. My variable heart rate thing's up at where it should be. It's up at a good thing because I did all the right things in that day. And so when I wake up in the morning and see a 90 sleep score, I think, that's success.
Great.
I've achieved it. So for every person, success is a different thing. And I think don't have any preconceived ideas about what success might be. So a lot of people become fixated, especially as you get older, on looks and how you look, and that's what signals success. That you dress for success. You've got this great suit and you've got this great car and your hair looks amazing. I've never really thought about those things as success. If they are for other people, that's great.
Yeah,
that makes you feel happy.
Yeah.
But for me, it's always been the sort of the things like, am I getting enough sleep? Am I seeing my friends and family? Am I paying my bills? Those sorts of things are
The things that make you happy. They're actually that happiness, isn't it? Because actually, we've talked about it before, having goals to, I don't know, like living a certain house or having a certain car or going on a certain holiday. Those things just come. And to be fair, I think a lot of people who live on those goals and values and thought processes, they get to that point, but they're never happy because they've achieved that car, if it's a car, and then they want that one, and then that one. And you're going along a conveyor belt to nothing, because at the end of the day, the satisfaction is actually looking back. And for me, I look back at some of the projects I've done, and I look at those projects and I look back at them and I'm thinking, wow, I did that. That was my project, and that was a level of success.
Yeah.
And that gives you fulfillment in your work, because you can look at projects that are successful, and it doesn't matter what that project is, but if it went well, that's a success story. And if you can go home and feel happy about something, that's a success story.
Absolutely.
And actually, the other bits, the financial bits, actually in the end, don't really make a great deal of difference at all.
I know some very high net worth individuals for whom money has not brought them happiness, because their pursuit of money to the avoidance of all else has not brought them the happiness that they would think.
Yeah.
I know other people who work really, really hard 8 months of the year to be able to fund 4 months of the year where they get to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
If that makes them happy, that's great. It works for them. Everybody needs to find what works for them. And it's when there's a mismatch. Some people retire after 45 years of working for the same business. it fills me with horror, the idea that you spent your entire life working for someone else in one role, doing one thing.
Absolutely.
But for other people, that's
That
the
is-
epitome of what success looks like.
Yeah.
That I've served my company faithfully for 45 years. And in that time, I've done all these things. And so there is no defining, you know, some people might look and say, oh, it's having the big house and the Bentley. A lot of the people with the big house and the Bentley in the private schools are really miserable, and they don't have the relationships, and they don't have the feeling of love. Success is a phone call at 3 a.m. from my child because their partner's gone into hospital and they need someone by their side, and they know that they can phone me at 3 a.m. and I'll be there, no matter what, without any questions. I've already got my shoes on, and I'm on my way. That for me is success, not the fact that they can come to me and say, "Can I have a loan of 20 grand?" and I go, "Yeah," and not, you know, that for me is the success element. Knowing that you're somebody else's dependable person, but you've got their back and they've got your back. That's what I'm on my second marriage. I like to call him my current husband. It always makes him laugh. But we've been married. We've been married for 14 years, and a second marriage for both of us. And I think the beautiful thing about being married to Dan is that he has got my back. And as a strong woman, that's a really hard thing for a bloke to do, because he has to realise that there are going to be moments where I'm just like, move over, I'm driving. And there are going to be moments when I'm going to sit there and go, I'd like someone else to drive, please. And he's the one who's allowed to be the person that can drive when I'm not able to drive. And when you find that special person, whoever your person is, where you're not always the driver and they're not always the driver, but where you can actually get in the car and say, who's got the most driving skills today? Is it you or me? Yeah. And that person then does it. That's the beautiful relationship. That's the success in a relationship. And again, too many relationships that you see that break down are where this person is always the driver, this person is always the passenger, and something in life happens and that driver can't drive anymore, that passenger can't be a passenger anymore, and their roles, their married relationship, their marriage, their business partnership falls apart because they haven't been able to do both roles, and they haven't been able to respect each other's capacity to do both roles. So that comes down to everything, you know, who earns the most money, who does the most housework, who does this, who does that, you know. Ultimately, in everything in life, be it that leadership or your success in your relationship, it's about openness. It's about having an honest conversation. It's about being able to laugh at yourself and them in a way that is loving, not nasty. And also a capacity to let each other just be what you need to be. I want my husband to be the best version of him. He wants me to be the best version of me, and I get to decide that, not him. And again, that ultimately comes with it's the same success parameters. What does success look like? Success looks like, you know, Dan always jokes, happy wife, happy life.
Fair enough.
But it's a symbiotic relationship. You know, it's the same for me. I want my husband happy, because if my husband's happy, then I'm happy.
Makes a difference.
I think we can carry on
we could.
more and more, because it's always interesting. And I think we should say a very
big thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Well, no, thank you. I'm really delighted to come here and talk to you both. It was really interesting to meet you, and I know your podcast is going to be a success. I don't have to hope for it. I know it's going to do well.
Thank you.
Caroline, how do people find you if they would like to come or find on the Kent Foundation?
Absolutely, yes. So if you just type into a web browser, kentfoundation.org, you will find the details. I can give them to you, but that's where you'll find us on the website.
We will post everything.
We will.
Or they can look for me on LinkedIn.
Caroline, thank you very much. It's been great this morning. So we hope everyone's really enjoyed listening to the podcast today. Thank you, Caroline, for coming along.
Thank you.
And we hope that if you've enjoyed it, please do like the video if you're on YouTube, and please do subscribe. And if you're listening or watching on Spotify, please do give us a follow. Thank you very much, and we wish you a great day.